How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. It's been a week since we last chatted.
Yes, our last episode was a week ago, and today is our first in a series of conversations with UK kombucha brewers. And this is with Adrian, one of the co-founders of Real Kombucha today. And we're going to hear a bit about his background, his story, their brand and how they got started, and some sort of advice for brewers who are starting out, and a bit about, the science of fermentation, hopefully, because he has sort of a scientific background. So yeah, excited about this one.
Yeah, we're going to geek out in this episode.
Yes, definitely.
All righty, we just got you should be with us any second now, and then we can start. Adrian, hi.
Hey guys.
Hey Adrian. Good man. Thanks so much for joining us. Nice to meet you officially. I don't think we've ever actually met before.
Yeah, it's I've seen faces. I don't think I've seen a lot of people for the last year, so it's nice. It's nice to start seeing people in person, but I know we can't quite do that, so we're over video for now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, man.
Adrian, well, as Adam mentioned before in the lead-in, Adrian is co-founder of Real Kombucha. Big fans, Adam?
Yeah, I discovered your product like right when it first came out, and I think it's one of the best kombuchas on the market. And I think your focus on creating something that's as complex as alcohol is really amazing. It's not something I've seen before. I'm from the States originally, and kombucha is obviously very big there, but no one's actually done anything like that. I think that's actually very unique to your brand in the UK in particular, and a lot of brands have followed after you guys sort of started that. And so I'm excited to dive into that, and also your background, the story of the brand, and your product range. But I'm a big fan. Yeah, really big fan.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah. It's lovely to be here, and hopefully I can tell you some stories.
Yeah,
cool.
And just to echo what later on, obviously, I'd love to hear more about why you picked the target audience you have picked for your drinks, because I think it's quite unique that you've gone for more of the Michelin starred, high-end restaurants, etc. So I'd love to hear more about that as well. Do you want to start, Adrian, just by telling us about, how you discovered kombucha? What got you into kombucha in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I think I won't talk for too long because there's lots I can tell you. But I guess probably starting at the beginning is probably a bit of my background and the team behind Real. I'm only a very small part of the success so far of the business. But my background, before I even discovered kombucha, I'd come from a health background. So I was the guy that stayed at university far too long. But I did my postgrad and then my PhD at University of Birmingham, and I specialised in nutrition. But particularly my thesis was about polyphenols. So plant-based compounds that have a number of health benefits. And I particularly focused on tea catechins. So I studied tea. It's not a PhD in tea. That's very niche. That can be done. But I studied kind of the metabolic effects. And I could tell you can read my thesis online if you like. No, I don't think anyone has. But my passion really in doing that, and then moving from that into lectureship for a couple of years, but then moving into food and drink industry, was how do you translate the science into something that can help people make better decisions? So that's always been kind of my North Star. Went through the food and drink industry, from working at a dairy company through to doing work with PepsiCo on reducing sugar for Gatorade, through to then working at Suntory, the soft drink side of the business, but mainly looking at how do you reduce sugar, how do you remove caffeine and sugar and sweetness from drinks and create a healthier yet tasty product for people that actually has some meaning in their life, right? Rather than just sugar water. So I looked at all sorts of technologies and ingredients and things like that. And that's where I first came across kombucha. Suntory is a Japanese company. I'd been to Tokyo a number of times where they've got their research center. And I should be clear, I was in the R&D team, so research development, and I kind of headed up the innovation side. So it was a mixture of commercial, marketing, R&D, MPD. And came across kombucha, and to begin with, it was like, what is this thing? I'm sure you guys are the same. It was like, what is this? And the depth and the culture and the history was fascinating. But for me, it was like, wow, there's this tea, and this tea is transformed in the process. I started brewing at home. I was a frustrated innovator within a large corporate company, and nothing. I don't know how many people will be listening to this, but no innovation got done because it was always about what's the new flavor. And another big thing at the same time was the premium adult soft drink category. And the term at Suntory was premium adult soft drink. And I was like, adult soft drink didn't really run true. It's like, it's either premium and it's adult, or it's a soft drink. And so it was like, and this is the time when Seedlip had just come into market. And so I was watching that space. I spoke at a conference, an innovation conference on drinks. I talked about all sorts of things: kombucha, teas, cold brew coffee, everything that's happening in the world of drinks. And there was a bloke in the audience called David Begg, who at the end spoke to me and was like, "You know something about tea? You're talking about kombucha. I'm brewing kombucha. I want to start a kombucha business. Let's talk." And I was like, "This guy's a madman. Who is this?" Anyway, I went for a coffee with him, and the rest history. No, David's passion, and David's the founder of Real Kombucha. He's the older one of the founding team, but he started a number of different businesses. Really smart, amazing guy. Got on very well with him. But his passion was when he discovered kombucha through a friend of his. He was at a dinner party and he was drinking very little alcohol, and he got served an oolong kombucha. It wasn't quite as refined as maybe how we do it now, but back then he was like, "Wow, this is really complex. There's nutty characters, there's depth and flavor. What is this?" And kind of was like, I can imagine this being served in every pub around the country, if done right. And being an entrepreneur himself, he got the bug and started brewing at home. And then when I met him, he had scaled to the airing cupboard at his home, which his wife wasn't too happy about. Meanwhile, I was in my airing cupboard, which my wife wasn't too happy about. And we took over his garage. He has a garage, which we made into a nano brewery, essentially. Started in 5 litre glass jars and scaled to 10, 20, 200. And that's where we started the business. Out of the garage, we got HACCP and food hygiene certification on it. We built our own bottling line in there, hand bottling line, not an automated bottling line. That would be crazy. The vision really at the beginning, from David's side, and I was so aligned to it, was how do you create something that is as good as a wine that's non-alcoholic? David was a big wine drinker, doesn't drink anymore. I'm still a drinker. I love wine. And I think I've strayed beyond just the original question, which was, how did I get introduced to kombucha? But
this is great.
Our thing at the very beginning was our belief, and the way we saw the tea leaf was that you can actually ferment tea like wine. And our real focus was that there's so much depth and versatility in teas from around the world. And it was partly by mistake, David fermented a silver needle tea and got really amazing expressions. And, we had flavors to look at on the side. We're like, and got to the point where, like, for us personally, we don't need to do that. And so we went down a very deep tunnel of R&D to understand, like, okay, how do you ferment tea like wine? What teas do you use? And as you guys know, there's no Adam, you've been fermenting tea far longer than we have, but there's no handbook on how to brew it. It wasn't like, beer, I'm doing a disservice to beer, but take something, the yeast that you want, the style, and there's somehow a methodology for it and the equipment for it. It just doesn't exist. Yeah. So for us, it wasn't just producing acidity, and it wasn't just about producing something non-alcoholic. It was, how do you get the balance between structure, tannin, sweetness, acidity, and then non-alcoholic? And it's really hard to do. And we've taken our time to build our R&D to where we are. So yeah, it started in the garage and it's moved from there. But we've fermented now 200 teas from around the world to really understand the character and the versatility of it. We've launched 3 into market, 1 that we removed due to not fitting in with our portfolio. and we have 2 in market in a number of formats. So that's probably the introduction into then a little bit of where we are, but lots of stories along the way.
Just to go back and just to touch on a few details. You mentioned you met David at the meeting. He wanted to chat to you about brewing commercially, etc. Did you have any inkling at that point that you wanted to go down a commercial route with kombucha? What was it made you decide, I want to do this commercially as well?
I think several reasons. One is there was at that time and still today, there is a massive need to help people, not using the word consumer because we're all people, help people make better decisions. And actually, the vision for us is, we want to change the way people drink. We see that, and I'm sure you guys have that vision as well. There is a lot of rubbish on the market. Even if it's marketed in a way that seems healthy, you look beyond or you do your research and it isn't. And so it's like, how do you create, at the time it was, how do you create authenticity in a liquid that's authentic in what it actually is as well? And at the end of the day, we should all drink water. That's the the survival for us as humans. But actually, when you start looking at kombucha fermented tea, actually there is some health attributes. There is obviously something that you have low sugar, low calorie, it's natural, and it can taste good. So it's kind of that kind of holy trinity in the drinks world, which is those 3 things. It's like, and you're seeing it today, innovation, health, and sustainability. They're the kind of 3 big pillars of commercial drinks businesses. So when we first started, it was, we believe we can actually change something. If it was, I think if some people go into commercial drinks going, we're going to shift volume, we're going to shift bottles. For us, it was, that's a byproduct. It's like that. It's actually, if we achieve our vision, the volume will come, but it's actually bringing about change. And our change was, we ferment tea like wine. And so our positioning is, premium kombucha served as a sparkling wine. For non-drinkers, and the vision's still there, the North Star's still there, and then the products to bring us through. So it started small, and it's being patient to grow the volume. It doesn't come overnight unless your market, your strategy is, we're going to flood the market. But the problem is with kombucha, you can't scale too quickly. If you do it, when I say properly, if you do it in a more traditional, you build your cultures, you ferment the tea, you treat it with care, and then you bottle it. But also, as you know, shelf stability and other things. There's lots of R&D. It's not just about producing liquids in the bottle. It's then how it gets to customers, the stability of that. Once it's in the customer, the stability of that, how long they have it for. So a bit of a headache. Not an easy one to get into, is it?
No.
It's so much more difficult than beer, because with jar, I started jar with the guys from Crate Brewery. So they had a beer brewing background, and I think we were all a bit like, we can figure this out. It's going to be the same as beer. It was way more difficult than beer. And man, like this, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, all 3 of us, about all the shit storms that we found ourselves in with overproduction of yeast. Maybe the alcohol was too high, off batches, whatever, like so many different things, because kombucha is this living, breathing, the SCOBY is an organism that you need to nurture. It's not just as easy as throwing a bunch of ingredients together. That North Star of yours, helping people make better decisions, that's so clear and concise. I wish I'd been able to articulate that myself, but thank you for that, because that is very much what kombucha does for people. Some people completely transforms their life. Some people gets them off alcohol. Some people it just allows them to incorporate healthier decisions into their daily life. And I think it's incredibly important and in a way noble of what you guys are doing, helping people transition from relying only on alcohol to realizing to creating and offering something that is complex, that is delicious, that makes you feel like you're still a part of the party or the social experience without feeling like you're on the edges of it. You don't have a pint of Coca-Cola in front of you. You have a bottle of something that you want to talk about and that tastes good, that you can sip on, that has that complexity and that story behind it, the amount of care and attention. With your background, with your testing of 200 different types of tea, with your focus on making kombucha in a way that you'd make wine, I think is amazing. And that's such a cool story, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's attention to detail is the crucial bit. I mean, David's background is building different businesses, but he's an engineer, so his already was thinking, right, we're at 5 or 10 or 20 or 200. How do we go from 200 to 2,000? What equipment do we need? And between us, and there's also third co-founder, John Wilkes, who's not drunk now, I think for 16 years. So really the passion for him is, I'm actually sick and tired of shit drinks. I want something that, like you said, Adam, something that I feel like I'm part of the party. So in the first instance, it was a lot of R&D and that attention to detail, the teas, the kits, all the variables, really understanding them. And look, we're still learning. We haven't cracked it, but at least we have the foundation knowledge of, we know how to ferment the tea like a wine. We know the consistency and flavor. We know shelf life. We know stability. And we're just pushing the boundaries beyond what we're doing right now in longer term. But the interesting thing is just that attention to detail and growing it. Our focus though was that fine dining. If we're going to be the best non-alcoholic sparkling and challenge wine, challenge champagne, we have to taste as good, if not better. So, and that positioning is crucial. So to this day, we've never gone to sell to any coffee shops. We've just not done that. And, the first instance was us going to great restaurants. One of our first customers was the Pig Hotel Group. Again, that link between nature, flavor, food pairing and experience, and then into Michelin star restaurants, the Fat Duck, Long Clume, and we just went wow. And so we basically produced in the garage, we bottled ourselves, we packed it up, we designed our labels ourselves. We had a graphic designer called Paul who helped us in the early days. And, we created a kind of a roadmap of where we were going to go, and we went around the country. Well, I went around the country in a van with 60 cases and came back with 3. And we went to see the Michelin star restaurants. And the interesting thing is there was a massive space then of the sommeliers going, yeah, people don't drink. Very traditional sommeliers were like, oh, no. Sorry, I'm generalizing. Sorry, that's really bad. There are other nationalities that for sommeliers. But they were like, no, people who drink wine. And if they're not drinking, they can have water. We're like, but no, there's a whole experience for them. And so that's where we focus that premium Michelin star restaurant to pair with food in a wine glass. For us, it's not a tumbler with ice. Just focus on that, and then we've scaled and grown it since then.
How many years ago was this, Adrian?
So we started the business officially. Well, we were in market. We started late 2017. So it was the year I was getting married. So we actually moved from the garage to, I shouldn't say then, the nano brewery to where we are now, where we've been for 3 years. And actually it was quite key for my wedding, because I managed to get into my wedding suit because we got the keys to it on July 1st, or 30th of June, I think it was. And my wedding's 12th of August. And for about a month and a bit, the builders fell through. And so between me and David and Oleg, who's one of our brewers, we built the brewery. When I say built, we had to gut it, we had to put up the walls, we had to watertight it, we had to put the drainage channels in. I think I lost about 4 kilos because it was like the heat of the summer, long days, we had a deadline to hit. And all my friends were like, mate, you've really worked out for the wedding. I was like, yeah.
And you accomplished loads. That's amazing. It's funny because we brewed in a garage for about 4 years as well. Mixed garage in Hackney Wick, a little bit bigger maybe, but yeah, I think the origin stories where we all first started brewing are really interesting. Andrew, are you I've never been there to visit, but is it sort of a garage environment, or is that like a back house that you have?
It's an old barn. It's about 150 years old. That is, I think, was at one stage, it's at the front of our house and was used as a garage. And I built the fermentation room, I built as my office to work, so I could work from home in here. And then, much like yourself, Adrian, and Adam, I fell in love with kombucha and decided that I wanted to to go commercial with it, and I converted it into the fermentation room. And since then, I've sort of taken over other parts of the barn. So on the other side there, we've got our canning room and our keg fridge, etc. So my wife isn't very happy with me at the moment. We're just, I'm slowly spreading, and I think this week, in fact, we're spreading to a friend's garage to start storing stock, etc. So and empty cans and so on. So I'm trying to find commercial space at the moment, but there's not a lot in rural Bucks at the moment. So
yeah, because we're not far from each other, are we? So
yeah.
We're
Almost neighbours.
Yeah. You should definitely come down. No, finding space. It's cheaper than it is in London. I don't know if you found that, Adam. But yeah, in terms of space and rent costs, but finding the space is quite difficult.
Yeah, so I don't want to be. If I wanted to travel for an hour or something, I could probably find somewhere. But it kind of defeats the purpose of, with a sort of, I guess, kind of ethos of having a kombucha business, or even just having your own business, that you don't want to be going for that whole feeling of commuting, going to a 9-to-5 type job sort of thing. You want to have. And I don't find it's not very creative when you're stuck in a car for an hour each way or whatever. So yeah. I'm being fussy and just saying this time I want to find somewhere that's relatively close by.
I think also if you're brewing yourself, and for us, and still stay close to it, you have to stay close to your kombucha, because it's not like hugging it, but so you may be tweaking recipe, you may be tweaking aeration, you may be, there's so many variables, and just being close to it means that you just suddenly pop in, have a look, take you, oh, actually something's changed. What's changed? And it's that kind of constant test and learn that I think is really crucial. And if you hand it over to someone else, they won't be as detailed and on it as like you are, because Absolutely. You're like, this is my baby. This is what I'm doing, isn't it?
But with regards, Adrian, to your kombucha, something that I've always loved about it is that it has a really balanced acidity without being overly vinegary. And that's something that a lot of brewers face, is, for us at least, in the early days, our kombucha was so vinegary that it put most people off, because we didn't understand how to optimize gluconic acid versus acetic acid. Can you offer any advice to any brewers out there about how to optimize gluconic acid? From what we found, at least, oxygenating is part of it, but from a scientific background, you must know a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess for us, it was, as I say, to be a sparkling wine, we've got to have balance in mouthfeel. And when we looked at wine, there's different acids, whether it's malic, lactic, gluconic, acetic, citric. There's all sorts of acids. And I think the way we look at the world of our cultures is that the yeasts and bacteria can both produce acids. Mm-hmm. So it's not just acetic acid and gluconic acid, but for us, we have other acids in our drink that aren't produced by the bacteria. Some of them are produced by yeast. So you can, in terms of changing it, it's to do with one, qualitatively assessing your cultures. Now, Dave and I initially were doing that, and now we have a head brewer, Guillermo, who's a microbiologist. So we're able to qualitatively assess that and quantify it. But I think it's that without having a microscope, say, and that sort of R&D investment, I guess it's changing oxygen levels. That's one thing. It's changing the sugar, and it's changing base nitrogen carbon base, which is then the tea. So it's then, it's making sure that actually maybe it's not having as much bacteria that are going to be producing so much acid. But then there's other things in terms of conditioning and rounding flavor, post fermentation. That's interesting. Whether it's you leave it before you bottle it, or you leave it before if you do carbonate, or you secondary ferment, or because that can soften. It's exactly what happens in beer and wine, where they will leave before they bottle to soften things out. So there's a number of ways, but I mean, if I told you our secrets,
not asking any secrets, don't worry.
I know just a few.
Yeah. But I think where we are now is like, it's that investment in R&D. It's such a big such a big thing. I mean, Adam, it's amazing that you guys have got now a brewing team, a brewing science team, and that's what, you know, with Guillermo and his team now, that's, you know, what we've built as well. Not probably to the heritage, the 150-year heritage, but, you know, I think that's where, if you're going to push the boundaries of drinks, you've got to understand it and know where you're taking it to the next level.
Adrian, just you're talking about microscopes and so forth. Now, what equipment did you think is essential, or that you didn't have and you wish you did have? So not from a expensive perspective, but from a, you know, a person starting out wanting to do this, what sort of equipment that you'd recommend they had?
Yeah, you know what, I think looking back, and David's been very good at, I think, instilling this in the business is actually sometimes less is more at the beginning. I think, you know, you think, oh, commercial, got to have shiny tanks, I've got to have this, it's got to, actually you can get by with very little. That said, I mean, the things that were really important to us at the beginning was a room that was temperature controlled and as tightly as possible, a space that was compliant with food hygiene, but also it's not just about being compliant, but you know that you can sleep safely at night because you know things are safe and they're you know, put away, animal proofed, everything like that. The containers that you're obviously fermenting in, that they are tight. If you're putting in actual valves or anything, that they're secured in. So some of those like little attentions to detail that can actually really help. And then, you know, aeration pumps, a decent pH meter helped. Just thinking through, the thing that helped us a lot was actually the ability to actually get it into a bottle. So we just had a counter pressured bottling line, which, again, the way David's brain works, he saw someone else's online and then was like, I'll build that. I think I left his on, you know, when we were in the garage, I left his on a Friday night or something, and then came back on Sunday and he's like, I built a bottling line yesterday. And it's just like, okay. So I think it's about being resourceful. But I think in the early days, and even, you know, to scaling up, it's the principles, those like really early principles that are so important, because you know how to do it at the basic level. So then when you do have either funds or you generate enough revenue that you can put it back into the business, you go, actually, if I want to step it up from my treated plastic containers, I'm going to go stainless steel. And as soon as you're stainless steel, you're like, wow, like the temperature control on them are amazing, and you upgrade yourself. So I think those are some of the basics at the beginning, but then again, it's just upgrading it as you go.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left, so time for a few more questions. Sorry, were you going to say, Sam?
No, yeah, I think that it sounds like the perfect combination of talent and experience in your team. And I think that's really, in a lot of senses, what it takes, is bringing together at some point another person or a couple people to offer perspectives that maybe you can't necessarily see. And because not all of us have that sort of scientific microbiological background. I certainly don't. Like, I knew how to make kombucha, but I had no clue how to measure it. I can sell it, I can market it, but I don't have that background. So for us, when we brought on board a guy named Matt Hoyle, who is now, he's actually head of production at the London Fermentory, he built us an acetator. He has an engineering background. So like David built this bottling line, our brewer Matt built us this acetator, which saved us tens of thousands and completely changed the way that we fermented. You know, for anyone out there that's looking to start, look into, you know, if you're not maybe scientifically minded, bringing someone on board who is, you know, someone who understands microbiology. Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of, I think, a great point with you guys.
I completely agree with that. And, you know, as you know, we're now a team of 12, and we're growing this year. We've got a number of roles going, but it's great people that are like-minded, but great people with great talents. That's how we see it. So yes, I couldn't agree more. We're only building because we've got Romy in marketing and John on our digital side and PR, and obviously we've got Peter and others at the brewery now. So, you know, it's about that team if you're gonna scale.
So Adrian, get back to So another question. What were your priorities at the point you decided to go commercial, and what is your business's priorities now?
Oh, good question. What were our priorities when we first started? The priorities was are probably twofold. One was product quality, making sure whatever left the door was as good as we could make it at that time.
Yeah.
The challenge is we knew we wanted to make it better, but we couldn't at that time. And the other was positioning and brand. Like I said at the beginning, we were razor sharp focused on Michelin star restaurants, premium dining. We didn't go for coffee shops, and our strategy then was on trade. So it was just very clear that we are, real sparkling fermented tea served as sparkling wine, and it meant that we didn't stray, even if it meant there wasn't as much volume in that area. That was our priority, and it's worked for us. We feel like it's worked for us, and we were able to grow in the on-trade pre-pandemic and bring on the wholesalers and make great relationships and have some great customers. And then the pandemic hit, and that was tough for all of us, and moved more D2C. And obviously we're lucky enough to bring on some retailers. We launched our champagne bottle, which is our hero SKU, cork and cage, always served in a champagne glass. But then it means our priorities now, strangely enough, aren't any different.
Okay.
It still is the best liquid that comes out of the brewery, and it is brand. The only thing now that, because of where we're at, and Adam, you probably find this as well, is you then have a trajectory that you're planning by, either because you've taken investment and you made commitments in terms of your scaling. So the third one is then just volume and revenue. It was still important back then. The early days, you've got to make some money along the way, show where you're headed. But that's probably then the third priority. But it's, like I said, it's not for volume's sake. It's brand and product quality, and then the volume will come.
Yeah.
So that's broadly top line. That's
it's interesting because a lot of people wouldn't. I don't think a lot of people would mention brand as being in the top priority. So I think it's great to hear that, when you're starting a business or starting to go commercial, that's the importance of branding and marketing.
With you guys, I think what you did an amazing job of was, it was a gamble and it was a risk to go into the on-trade with kombucha. That was bold. And when we first started, we sort of dipped our toes in the water there. We served it on draft, and nobody bit. They weren't interested. So we're like, okay, we'll go for the Whole Foods. We'll go for that immediately, which was the easy win. Real success takes taking a leap of faith like that, and also having that purpose, like, David's experience, John's experience, your background. There was a reason for you guys to do that, and you can see it paying off. I know you recently got a listing on Ocado. You guys are in Waitrose in your cork and cage, and now that's being served as a real viable option for people who don't want to buy a bottle of wine. And so when you take that leap of faith, and I think this is what you guys have really achieved, you have grown your brand, you've grown your product to a point that then it's able to go mass market in a sense, like you're able to reach that wider base. But that took years of like grafting and like real work and a lot of risk taking, to go into that, to change the way that people drink is a big thing to do. And I think for a lot of people that might be tuning in, they're trying to figure out how to position their kombucha. You guys are we're the pioneers, from my perspective, in selling kombucha in the on-trade as a real alternative to alcohol. And I think that's incredible. So congratulations on that, man.
Thank you for that very kind words. I mean, it's lovely to hear it, and we're proud of what we've achieved. But yeah, it's been hard work, but we've also, we look at what others are doing. We saw what you guys were doing, and when on draft, one of the first kombuchas I drank from Whole Foods was Jar.
Cool.
So the thing is, we take influence, but we've just put our heads down and we've just ploughed along, and I think we've really reflected over the last year is that we have some great relationships across channels, but these sorts of things, chatting to people, understanding how people have succeeded or failures, because the failures are as important as the successes. And we've had, I've painted a nice bit, and you painted a nice picture of success, but we've had lots of things go wrong. We've had lots of issues in production and building issues and customers not being happy. And the risk is you can't get it wrong in the on-trade. Oh, you can't get it wrong in any channel, but particularly on-trade because it's relationship focused. You piss someone off, you've got to make it better. But no, thanks for that. I mean, we're just doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
No, I think
Awesome.
you actually mentioned the word, and it's a key word for ourselves. Is transparency, and as part of why we're doing Adam and I are doing these talks is because we want to, increase transparency of the industry, increase transparency of the drink, and hopefully, as a result of doing so, we'll be building awareness. So, for me, one of the biggest problems Booch faces is a lack of awareness in the public. Having a selection of one type of kombucha when you go into a shop rather than multiple types like you would if it was a soda or a beer. So I think, being transparent and also I think screaming from the rooftops the fact that our products are all natural, that they're not, there's no chemicals, I read, you'd know more about this because they all went over my head, but I read an article talking about what goes into wine, and I was stunned about the unnatural processes and things that go into wine.
Totally. I mean, it's written into law that there's loopholes and things like that, and you delve underneath, and there's all sorts for clarification. They use egg whites or fish guts or all sorts of things. That's why there's big vegan movement now in wine. But I think what's really interesting in that space is to look at what's happening in biodynamic, low intervention, pet nat style wines, and that's a lot of influence that we took in the early days. And yes, I think transparency is such a crucial part. I think we've just got to grow the category enough so that operators make the choice for consumers, so that there is a proper ranging. And everyone produces kombucha differently. We produce it in our style. We still use a yeast bacteria culture. There is a SCOBY involved. We happen to harness more the science of the yeast bacteria balance. That's how we do it. There's you guys do it a certain way. Other people decide to do it in more of a engineering route where they will go the other way. Now, whether that's right or wrong is is for people to comment, and that's not for us to debate here. But I think there is that category view of the choice that you can have. But it's going to take time because beer now an operator will have an IPA, a stout, two different styles of lager on tap, but that's taken years, decades. So I think these conversations are great to bring to life what people are doing and seeing, and getting people to understand what kombucha can be and when it can be consumed in the occasion.
And also the passion the people behind kombucha, the passion they have for kombucha. It's obvious from the way you're talking, the way Adam's spoken, etc. Myself. We're passionate about what we do, and we're passionate about the drink itself.
Yeah, well, we used to do before the pandemic is we used to do tours. I know down at Jar you did tours and things. I think I tried to sneak along to one before we met, and I couldn't make it. We're going to start those up again. We did some consumer ones. We did it for trade. We've got up at the brewery. We have a tasting room, which is in the old kind of cow shed, which is on a decommissioned farm. We do tastings there, and I think being able to do more of that brings to life what you do. And I think more we can do that because people after the pandemic want to get out, want to do something different.
Yeah, totally. I think just the last thing for me is I think it's really awesome that we get to chat, and I think it's really important that the industry communicates with each other, and there's this community now where we can mutually respect what each other is doing, and everyone's coming at it from a different perspective, and also just to acknowledge that we're actually on the edge of something very different. We're expanding this category, and it's I think you guys, Adrian, have done an amazing job at expanding the kombucha category in a direction that it had never gone in before, and we're at the edges of that, and I think that's really exciting, and to be able to share that and talk about that and get pumped about that is really cool. And Andrew, with you as well, expanding this understanding of Jun, and that's still a relatively new category to a lot of people, and I think that is going to be really exciting to see where that goes in the future.
Yeah,
sure. I'd love to come down and see what you're doing, Andrew, and Jun. I think amazing. I mean, we dabbled in a little bit, but yeah, you've got your work cut out. It tastes amazing. You get it right. It tastes amazing.
Well, if you came visiting, it'd be very similar to when you started out in your garage, I'm sure.
Oh, beautiful! Beautiful. Beautiful.
I don't have the engineering ability to actually create my own bottling line, but so I bought a canning line, but it's still fairly manual. But it allows me to do a little bit faster when because unfortunately it's just me, so I need to get as many.
The same for us. Our bottling line was literally, it was just on, turn, off, turn. It was like 300 bottles an hour. It's like,
you are the conveyor belt.
Yeah. No breaks though. Like other people got breaks. Just for me and Dave, it's just.
I finish a day of canning and I'm just like broken. It's just like, that's it. I've got to lie down. Guys, it's been fantastic chatting. I really enjoyed this. It's been actually quite inspirational. So thank you so much, Adrian.
It's a good workout.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adrian. This was awesome, man. Thanks so much for sharing the story.
No worries. Thank you for the invite. And thanks for the kind words.
Thank you, Adrian. And we look forward to catching up soon. I will definitely come and visit very, very soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
I think we're having a beer as well soon, Adrian. So I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, looking forward to that.
All right.
See you, mate.
Bye.
See ya.